The University of Maine system welcomes you to participate in an interactive college success series hosted by Chancellor Daniel Malloy and each of our presidents from Maine's public universities. In each episode, we will discuss a range of topics from paying for college, student expectations, successful transition, and much more. We'll even answer questions live from our Maine community audience. The presidential tour is streamed live every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Please visit values.maine.edu to view the schedule of upcoming episodes or watch past episodes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joan Farini-Mundy, the president of the University of Maine and the University of Maine at Machias. Welcome to the Presidential Tour College Success Series. This is presented by the University of Maine system, and it's hosted this evening by UMaine and UMaine Machias. The transition to college segment that we were planning to do tonight, we will be moving to later in the semester, so stay tuned for that. Tonight, though, we want to focus on the success of our current students and the support of their transition, all of our transition really, to distance instruction. This has been a phenomenal week here on our campus, obviously in the state of Maine and in the entire nation and world. And so we are adjusting quickly and proactively to making a difference here at the University of Maine system and on our UMaine and UMaine Machias campuses to serving our students well as we complete the semester under very different circumstances than which we began. So we're looking at tonight how we're doing that. We're going to talk to some faculty and talk to some students and hear about what it's like as we make this very quick transition to making our instruction available remotely through a variety of means and modes. I also want to just say thank you at this time to our faculty and staff who are doing the work to support our students and to make these changes in very quick succession. We also, I need to say, through the leadership of our Chancellor Dan Malloy, who I'll introduce shortly, we've been working on this for a few weeks now, and we're going to be up and ready with the timing that we've proposed. So with that, let me introduce our Chancellor, Daniel Malloy, the Chancellor of the University of Maine system, who has a few words for us now.
Thank you, Joan, and thank you for the good work that you do. To everyone who's watching tonight, let me say that I wish we were having a different show, that circumstances hadn't played out the way they have with the virus prevalence now in all 50 states and around the world. We had an obligation, quite frankly, to make sure that our faculty, our staff, and our students were put in the safest possible conditions going forward. We also had an obligation to make sure that we weren't responsible for bringing the virus back in even larger numbers from our spring break. That's what caused us to time the announcement before spring break took place, and what is causing us to take the time of spring break to get ready to transition to online or other modality learning so that our students, all of our students, can complete their semester as they planned, graduate if they're approaching their graduation. And I certainly understand and want to acknowledge to all of the faculty and staff how difficult the challenge is, but how important it is. We can't let our students down. We have to meet our obligations to them and to those who will follow them and wonder whether we rose to the occasion. There's no doubt in my mind that we will receive that A grade for having risen to the occasion, making sure that we're supplying the education we promised our young people in the safest possible conditions we can bring about, given the constraints that we all live under with the virus now present throughout the world. So again, I'll turn it back to Joan, but I do want you to understand how much I appreciate the sacrifices we're asking you to make and your willingness to rise to that occasion.
And I'd like to echo Chancellor Malloy's words when I say how committed we are to our students, to their success in this difficult time. I've been meeting with faculty for the last several days. We'll be doing more of that through the coming days. And I am absolutely impressed by how collaborative they are, how groups of faculty are putting forward their offers to help other faculty figure out how to get their courses online, giving tips, giving advice. One tip that came from Rich Powell, who is the director of our Cohen Institute, is to keep it simple, faculty. Remember, the main thing here is to keep in mind your course objectives, to think about what it was you wanted to accomplish at the beginning of the semester, and find a straightforward way with all the great advice and support people are willing to give to help make sure that that happens in the remaining part of the semester. So with that, I'm really happy to introduce Professor Julia McGuire, who is the University of Maine Professor of Biology, because she's been doing phenomenal work in her area to help us figure out how to solve this interesting challenge. So Julia, please tell us what you're up to in biology.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here sharing some of our experiences and our process with all of you. For us, it's really come down to community, compassion, and communication with our students and our team. We have a diverse team of co-instructors. I co-teach with Farad Dastor in the School of Biology and Ecology. We have an instructor of Bio 100, and we have a lab coordinator who has been instrumental in trying to get this off the ground. We have a fleet really, of TAs, Maine learning assistants, and student employees who have also been innovative and creative in helping support this process. The key that we have really held to is finding out and meeting our students where they are. And it is important to do so, especially with the magnitude of the changes and the size of our courses, I should say. We have about 500 students spread across Bio 200 and Bio 100, and we had to figure out what type of access they had to the various online platforms. And so what we did was survey our students on Friday to see where they are and make sure that there's equitable access to, again, as everyone has expressed is so important, we help students meet the outcomes of the course that we set forth in a new and creative method. And so we have come together to evaluate our challenges and come up with solutions across the board. And so some of the challenges that our students are facing are, one, connectivity to the internet. Our Bio 100 students mostly are connected to the internet and have devices. Our Bio 200 students are not as, do not have as much access. And so the diversity of those challenges we are approaching in each of those courses. The courses also themselves have different challenges, where our labs, as many other classes on campus, have this challenge that are lab-based. Our labs are not as adaptable as our lecture-based courses. Specifically for Bio 100, we could not do either of the large labs we had planned to do for the remaining of the semester. And so again, we're meeting students where they are. I think Rich Powell had wonderful advice, keeping it as simple as possible, but really helping students gain the knowledge and the scientific process in as collaborative a way as we can throughout the semester. And I'm happy to go into more details as needed.
Thank you, Julia. That's really encouraging to hear and very exciting because tackling the challenges of keeping lab learning going, clinical experiences, the full range of sorts of field experiences that are a part of what we do here at UMaine and UMaine Machias and across the system. It's reassuring to know that our faculty and staff are really taking that on and sharing information with each other. I want to also thank the University of Maine Faculty Senate that has been very engaged in helping us figure out how we will make the pass-fail opportunities available to students, and watch for an announcement on that very soon. The Senate demonstrates the same kind of commitment that you're hearing from Julia, this notion that we have to put our students first and that we want to help you. We understand that there will be situations, individual situations, where everything that we're trying to do still won't fit for you, and you need to be sure to be in touch with your faculty members, your professors, your advisors, because I think we're fully committed to making a difference for you that works. I would also say that the system staff have been phenomenal in providing us with ideas about resources, everything from a range of technology tools and platforms, from Blackboard to Google Suite to Zoom. We're using those all heavily right now, and we expect to continue to do that, helping our science faculty learn from each other and also know about simulations and other kinds of online tools that can be used to replace in-lab kinds of experiences. We're also looking at certain specialized software, so keep watching for those kinds of tools to be available too. I'm really glad that Julia mentioned the fact that students were surveyed, and to learn about who has access and who doesn't. That's important for us to understand going forward as we work to finish the semester with accessibility for all of you. Chancellor, anything you'd like to add as we talk about all of this?
Well, again, I think that, first of all, it's great to hear from the professor, and thank you very much for your contributions tonight. And the excitement around fulfilling our mission, I think, is really what dictates that we will, in fact, get this done. And so to hear from you and to hear from the conversations that you're having across the staffing level is really quite amazing. Again, our nation has faced these kinds of challenges in the past. If one can remember as far back as the Vietnam War, when many of the universities across the country operationally closed, most of those institutions were still eventually able to honor their commitment to their students and allow students to complete those programs. This is a different situation. It's caused by an illness, and that brings an additional fear factor to our calculations, and also our larger obligation to make people as safe as we reasonably can under the circumstances that present themselves. These are important questions and important challenges, and again, I think that we're seeing each day as we get a little bit further into this that everyone's rising to the occasion, and that will meet those needs. It won't be easy. There will be problems. I think the professor's reference to some of our students not having the same amount of access as other students. And generally, that may be according to the equipment that's available to them, or quite frankly, whether they have the ability to pick up the appropriate signal to do what they have to do. We're going to have to continue to work on that. And also, we're going to have to adjust as we go through these difficulties to different warnings and standards that will be applied by the federal government or state government. And that's why communication, quite frankly, is going to be so very important.
I'll just add one more thing about this. When the Chancellor made the first announcements about how we would move and how we would proceed in this situation, one of the pieces of language that I thought was really important was when we talked about moving classes to be online or to use other pedagogically appropriate approaches. And so I'm already hearing from faculty who are doing all kinds of interesting hybrids, where for some students the online opportunity will work and they'll be able to get access and they'll have a situation wherever they are living and working that they can get online. But for others it won't work, and so we're talking about hard copy kinds of packets that can be sent out where students will have interesting opportunities. I've heard faculty telling us about students being able to take photos of things as they are working on whatever the assignments might be like, and then find a way to send those in and so on. So we're trying to be really creative, and I'd say to students and to families out there, if you have ideas about how we can do this in ways that will be even more accessible for you or more suitable for your circumstances, please have students get back in touch with their professors, because we're really trying to see this as a community effort, and we're happy to take a lead and also to hear from all of you.
If I can, I want to stress that we're not in this alone either. So the nation, the entire nation, quite frankly, universities across the world are making the same changes that we're making here. We're in this together. And every day as you go along, you see more articles published, more information being exchanged between faculties of different universities in different countries. So we're moving in the direction in mass. And I think there's this world recognition that we have an obligation to meet the standards that apply under the circumstances and help our students and faculty do that.
Absolutely. Julia, anything you'd like to add before we move to we're going to have a video and meet a UMaine nursing student, but what would you like to add here?
I've been really heartened by the community collaboration that's going on, not just with professors, but we had students already sending in ideas and brainstorms, and we have whole drives of resources, not just from our campus, but from around the country. And I think that it really speaks to the collaborative nature of the University of Maine and really academic communities across the country. Terrific.
Okay, so I want to alert everybody to the website that you need to look at if you're interested in more information. It's maine.edu/health health-advisory. maine.edu/health-advisory. Now we're going to move to a video to introduce University of Maine nursing student Hannah Netto.
Better, worse, oh. I always wanted to deliver babies. That's just been a thing I've wanted to do since I was probably 5 years old.
So in adults under the age of 50, a female serum ferritin is, so if you want to please start.
My mom is a nurse. She went to the University of Maine, and I've just seen her be incredibly caring my whole life and just see how she changes other people's lives.
I also wanted to be a nurse my entire life. It was something my grandmother always wanted me to be a nurse. Being here was probably the best 4 years of my entire life, probably the most difficult 4 years.
The program here at the University of Maine is intense, but it's rewarding because you really start to feel like you're becoming a nurse.
Guys, I don't think this one actually lets you mix.
And then you're going to put it in the machine. That's how I unbox.
It is daunting depending on the patient that you get. As far as being prepared for dealing with patients, I felt pretty prepared because they talk about all different sorts of scenarios. They make sure you have all the tools that you need before you go in. So an opportunity came up for me freshman year to work with a nursing professor who was trying to get into sustainability research related to nursing.
Go to your shared.
And we focused on hospitals in Maine and focused specifically on food waste and looking at the impacts it has from hospitals, such as like how much, where they go, what they're doing, because there's little to no data on it. In order for us to stay on this planet and for us to keep the world healthy, we need to be sustainable. I'm very excited to pursue my nursing goal, and it's starting to become real. The goals from here are to graduate and then work for a few years, get my skills, and go get my CNM certification and deliver as many babies as possible, support as many women as possible, make a difference, and then hopefully come back and teach others. That way I can pass on what I've learned and my skills to other young nurses like me.
Welcome to our second segment, which is going to focus on students. We're going to hear from two University of Maine students about what their experience is like right now and get some advice from them about how we keep moving forward into the future. Chancellor Malloy, maybe you'd like to say a word or two before we hear from our students.
Well, you know, I'll go back to a segment we did. You brought up the concept of pass-fail as I asked our universities to make available to students case. And some people are wondering why I asked that, and really it is about the students. The students made a bargain. They wanted their education delivered a certain way in the classroom, and they signed up for that assignment. And the reality is that I felt it was highly appropriate, and thankfully being joined by others, including your own Senate, to recognize if we're going to make that kind of change, we should allow students to make adjustments as well. So your university has a particular plan to roll that out. I think that's very important. And whether students exercise that option or don't, I thought it was an important tip of the hat to students, recognizing that nobody's responsible, but we're making this change.
Well, it's great to have that kind of guidance and direction from the system, because it signals that what we want to do is to be flexible and adaptable as we move through this, and to hear from students. We're trying to anticipate the kinds of things that we can do, but at the same time we're going to need to hear from you. So let's do that. Let's hear first from Vincent Scott, who is from Winthrop, Maine. And Vincent, I'll ask you to tell us a little about yourself and what year you are and everything, and how this whole situation is affecting you and what you're doing with it.
Awesome, yeah. So, my name is Vincent. I went to Winthrop High School. I'm a second year studying environmental science and ecology, and it was kind of a shock at first when we first found out that Wednesday, but I feel like the university's done a really good job transitioning It was certainly a little hectic in those 3 days because I was one of the students that lived on campus, so I had to figure out my whole situation. But I've been reached out to by a bunch of people on campus who are more than happy to help, and if any students needed anything, they were more than happy to help.
So what are your courses? Have you heard much yet about what your courses are going to look like?
I've heard a little bit. So I'm actually taking kind of a heavy load this semester. I'm taking 18 credits, and being a STEM major, I have pretty heavy like science credits. I'm taking like 2 lab courses as well. So I'm not quite sure. We haven't sort of figured out where the labs are heading, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask. But a lot of the other professors have said that they want to rely on Zoom so that you still get that human to professor connection. And,
Good. Good. Well, hopefully over the next few days you'll be hearing more and learning more. But please, of course, ask your professors. And
Yes.
they're still working at it. They have a deadline, and I know people are still in the middle of doing that. I just want to remind everybody that we will have a segment for Q&A at the end of this session, and so please do store up your questions, and we'll work with those. Well, thanks a lot, Vincent.
Yes.
Next, I'd like to introduce Andrea Shane, who is from Vinyl Haven, Maine. And Andrea, tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so my name's Andrea. I'm a third-year social work major with a Spanish minor, and I'm from Vinyl Haven, Maine, which is an island 75 minutes off the coast of Maine. So it takes a ferry ride to get home and back. So that was a change for me when I found out I was moving home. But thankfully, with my social work major, all the faculty is amazing. So before this even happened, we had talks in class about how do we want to go about this, what would be easiest for us. So we were pretty prepared.
Terrific. That's great to hear. Do you have advice for us as faculty and administrators? Things that we can be doing to be more supportive, to be more helpful? Questions that you still have that we should talk about here a little bit? We have the chancellor here. He can help us figure out the answers.
Yeah, so I think for me as a social work major, we do placements, so we have to go work in agencies. And as well as social work majors, I know nursing majors, a bunch of majors have clinicals. So how are clinicals and placements going to work?
It's a good question. I think they're different situations, and it's a very changing situation we're in because many of the organizations that those clinicals were placed with, for instance, are deciding that they're not going to operate, or they're going to operate in a different way. So I think this is a day-by-day situation that we're involved in, and hopefully we'll be able to provide more information. You've had some of that experience. We'll try to fill the void if one develops thoroughly. But you know, with the president's announcement just yesterday that groups of 10 really should be the limit, it's going to be a very interesting and fluid situation that we'll observe. I think, having said that, faculty and others will try to step up and fill that void with other experiences, or at least other introductions of experiences to you as well. But stay tuned, and we'll keep working on it to get it as far along as we can.
You know, a field like social work, and there are many other fields too, are fields that involve licensure and credentialing and so forth, which means they're governed by organizations and accrediting agencies that are also, of course, right in the middle of trying to figure out what their adjustments will need to be going forward. So back to something the Chancellor said earlier, the notion that we're part of a national conversation about this is actually pretty helpful, at least in my thinking, because we can always look to what our national advice is, and they'll be offering some best practice ideas too. We'll have lots of people working on those kinds of questions. How about you, Vincent? What's on your mind?
No, yeah, for sure. Definitely the lab thing was something on my mind, and I'm actually in Julie McGuire's bio class, and so that Friday, like when we had a conversation about accessibility and making sure that all students had access to the learning, was like really affirming that like we're actually gonna get through this, and we're gonna get the content that like we thought we might miss out on by going online.
Right. Right. I mean, we're really trying to emphasize with the faculty, again, stay focused on what your course objectives were in the first place, and do what you can with it. And we'll be having some faculty conversations over the next couple of days to check in with everybody and to see how they're doing. What's your sense of your colleague, your fellow students? You know, it's always a little hard to speak for the whole place, but what's the mood and tenor of things right now?
I feel like a lot of people are just not necessarily worried, but they're just
Yeah.
concerned of what their future is going to hold, like where this is all going to pan out to. I know a lot of people are also worried how this may affect like prerequisites. I know that's like another thing for me, being like at the end of my like second year is typically when you start getting into more like major specific courses, and a lot of those like require prerequisites in order to get into those higher level classes. And so being that we're not in the classroom, if that would affect any sort of prerequisite requirements.
Well, I think our desire is that you be able to fulfill those prerequisites, and that's why we're putting a lot of work into it. I should also say that the notice has gone out that we're actually delaying the start, which was originally going to be this coming Monday, the 23rd, and we're not going to start until the 25th. With respect, and that's really to give us a little more time to work out some of these issues, to get more advice from some of the other accrediting entities or majors. And so we'll have more information, we'll be sharing more information, and I think there'll be more outreach. But we thought we needed to take just a little bit more time, particularly at a big university, and we wanted to do this on a system-wide basis to make this conversion with all of the courses and all of the programs. We figured we should take a couple of extra days to get it right, or get it as right as it's going to be on the day that we start. There'll probably be some difficulties, but I think we can work it out. And again, I think what our program is really designed to do is make sure that your progress will not be impeded.
Yeah.
Right, and on that front, I'm finding that as we move through this, and it's uncharted territory for everybody, right? We're trying to take things as they need to be taken, essentially one step at a time. But this whole question about prerequisites and whether letter grades are required for something later and so forth, our faculty are on those questions. I think that's going to just be the next wave of discussions we need to have. And our watchword is to be flexible, adaptable, and student-focused. So we get through figuring out pass-fail, and we get through our online and distance and remote access, there will be a whole next round of issues that I think we're ready to begin to work through with faculty governance and with our colleagues across the system, and we have to do that.
And I think the other thing is in New England, hundreds of thousands of other students are in exactly this situation, and in the country, millions of students are in this situation. So this is one gigantic collective experience that we're having right now, and we'll get it right.
Just one other little quick footnote to what the Chancellor said about the kind of pause for next Monday and Tuesday that gives us until the 25th to get fully back up and running. A lot of that too is about our students.
Yeah.
It's about students who are needing to get organized, who need to figure out how to take a ferry to get to a place. Those are pretty significant situations, and there are so many of them, and they're different for every student, and so we hope that people will be able to use that time too to sort some of that out and get some help as needed. Vincent, do you want to talk to us about your high school senior sister?
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. Like my sister is senior in high school right now, so she's been doing the college search, and
UMaine is great.
Yeah, yeah, go UMaine. But her and all of her friends are all now like concerned whether or not they're going to be able to make it, because I know a lot of like accepted student days at pretty much every campus have been canceled, and what the stake of their like college decision is going to be, whether it's going to be extended, or how they're going to find out which university is right for them.
Well, I think there are a lot of online opportunities. Obviously, with UMaine, there's some great videos, and it's not the same. We'll that's just the reality of the situation. I hope she comes to the University of Maine. She should follow the lead of her big brother, and you should stay out of her way if she comes here. But it's going to be a difficult challenge, and I was following the cancellations of these days that are taking place in campuses all over New England, all over the country, particularly in light of the new directive, no more than 50 people, and optimally keep it to 10. So in any one place, any one classroom, any one area. So that's going to make those kinds of visits very difficult. And then, of course, we're going to have orientation issues later in the summer that we're going to have to plan. Now we have a little more breathing room for that. She's got a big decision to make, and when in doubt, come to Maine.
Yeah, that's what I'll tell her.
And there will be some tools too. Our folks in enrollment management and in admissions here at UMaine, and I think across the system, really are being incredibly creative. So we moved our Accepted Students Day that was to have been held last Friday to a virtual Student Accepted Accepted Students Day. When the draft announcement came through, somebody had written, "We have canceled Accepted Students Day," and I said, "No, we're having a virtual Accepted Students Day." And I think what we're going to see are lots of really creative solutions. And for students who are taking a look at college, you need to get to know the institution as best you can right now under these circumstances. Faculty will be happy to talk with you. I think all of us will be using social media and virtual opportunities much more creatively maybe than we would have or as quickly as we might have. So right now then we're going to segue to an example of our virtual tour for the University of Maine.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the University of Maine. My name is Lizzie and I'm going to be taking you on a tour today. I'm a 4th year senior studying communications and journalism with a double minor in political science and media studies. Right now we're at the Office of Admissions at the Heritage House and we're going to be going on tour today, so let's go! Welcome to Fogler Library here on campus. Inside you can find thousands of resources for students, teachers, and faculty on anything and everything you need to know. Let's go inside. Welcome to the Oaks Room and Cafe, the only place in the Fogler Library that you can eat and drink. So you can grab snacks, sandwiches, wraps, sushi, granola bars, and most importantly, coffee, and have it right here with your friends, study or do some homework, or just take a break from everything that you're doing outside of the library. So you can bring drinks anywhere in Fogler Library, but you have to eat in here. Welcome to the first level here at Fogler Library. Here at the library, we operate on 3 levels of sound. Right now, we're on the first level, which means that you can work on group projects, hang out with friends, sit at one of the tables you see right here, charge your laptop, and do things as a group. On the second floor, you can whisper and talk quietly. And on the third floor, we require absolute silence. The reason for this is because everybody studies differently, and we don't want someone to be disrupted by sound, and we want someone to be able to work when they need sound.
Welcome back, folks. This is our question and answer period, and we're really happy to have here back with us Julia McGuire and 2 other members of our community, Katie Harder and John Macetta, and I'm going to ask them to say a little bit more about their roles and their jobs, and then we will begin to take your questions. Okay, so Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Harder, and I'm an Assistant Director for Student Life. So I work in the Division of Student Life, just helping with general student services. I oversee our first year and transfer center and commuter non-traditional center as well.
Hello, my name is John Macetta. I'm the Director of the Advising and Academic Services Center and also the Explorations Program for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Myself and my great staff primarily work with undecided students, but also provide additional advising support for any declared major within the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences.
Okay, so we're starting to take a look at these questions right now. I want to also remind everybody to keep an eye on the website, which we will be updating regularly. It's maine.edu/health-advisory. maine.edu/health-advisory.
So I have a question that maybe you can help me with, and it's from someone who's worried about students who are already struggling in their classes. So when classes ended last week, they weren't as confident now of where they are. They're wondering how can they get help and what kinds of help might be available to them. I will point out that we have arranged for pass-fail as an option that students will have available to them. But can anybody help me help them?
Absolutely.
I think the biggest key is communicating with the faculty directly. Though I'm not teaching classes specifically, I've been part of a lot of conversations with faculty and our different deans within the college, and there's been a lot of emphasis on how faculty can communicate and support and work with students. But I don't think faculty are going to know that unless they hear directly through the students. So I think, though it could be a little scary sometimes for students to open up to faculty, I think the faculty are going to be extra sensitive with this transition. And I think it's really important for the students to really communicate that directly to the students as we're going through this transition.
Any other thoughts?
Yes, I have some ideas. We've considered a number of ideas to support students. One, there are a lot of concerns around how students would access material. We've decided on asynchronous, so meaning that we're not going to hold required class times during our regularly scheduled class, that students can access the material as they need it. We will be holding help sessions with, again, our team of TAs and Maine learning assistants and our lecturers, professors as well. So we're going to have clearly communicated multi-level approaches to support students, again, importantly, where they are.
You know, there are a few questions that have to do with events and activities and things that would be happening further out, questions about fall, even summer. And I think in general, our hope is that we work through this horrible situation and that we can be back up and running. But to be honest, we just don't know what timelines will be like. So at this stage, my best advice on this is to watch websites, watch advice that will be coming out of the universities and through the system websites as well about such things as study abroad or fall classes. Even commencement, we know, is of great importance to so many people who are watching this right now. We will be able to offer some guidance in mid-April about where we stand on that, and we obviously will want to be sure that students are honored and celebrated with the meaningful kind of experience that will be possible as we figure out how to do it. I gave Professor McGuire a question. What do you have there?
So this is adding on to the conversation around pass-fail classes, and if there are pass-fail classes, will they be optional? Will this option be available?
So, what do you think? What the Faculty Senate and the administrative side, the academic side of the university are working on this right now. Again, the governing principle here is to be as flexible and supportive of students as possible and to also accommodate individual students' needs. There are cases where students will want to and or need to have a grade in a course, and so we want to be sure that those options are available. But my guidance, and I think the Chancellor's, has been maximum flexibility and student centricity. And so watch for these. Again, individual faculty will have specific answers by course.
And I think as also a faculty advisor, approaching your advisor and asking for some recommendations. I think Vincent's question earlier was really apt in terms of you're looking toward your classes next year upcoming. So how will our courses now help support you to get there, depending on whether you take pass-fail or whether you take it for a grade?
There's a rather specific question about student teaching and K-12 schools closing. And of course, across Maine, we are seeing our public schools making this decision and closing and more every day. So I do assume that student teachers aren't going to be able to go into schools that are closed. Follow the guidance being given by those schools, but absolutely be in touch with advisors in the College of Education about how that will work. And again, remember the comment that I made earlier to Andrea about the importance of knowing that for these fields that require credentials and licenses and certifications and so forth, we're in the midst of a very big national situation. And so we'll be able to work out these these challenges with our accrediting agencies, with the state, and with all of the organizations that care about making sure we have students who can become teachers, making sure that we have social workers, nurses, all of these professions that are so vital to Maine. We're working at that.
I've gotten a question, and it is, will classes resume in the fall, even if the pandemic continues? You know, it's a great question, and one that I hope we can answer. We're planning for classes to resume in the fall, and we will take the steps necessary to be ready to open. One of the things that we're doing right now is to slow down the spread of the virus across our nation, so that our hospitals and caregiving institutions aren't literally overwhelmed, so that there's the care necessary for our fellow citizens that they have to access, so that it will be available to them. We know that in all likelihood this virus will continue to be amongst us for some period of time. It's estimated that a vaccine, for instance, for those who are not affected previously by the virus may not be available for a year to 18 months. But what we're really doing, and doing across this country, is trying to slow down the spread, to keep the largest number of our human family safe for as long as we can, and to make sure we don't overwhelm the medical institutions. So I'm hopeful that we'll actually be in a position, very hopeful that we'll actually be in a position to reopen, but only time will tell, and there's lots of time between now and then to have that conversation. Under any circumstances, we will be making educational opportunities available to the people of Maine, I can assure you.
You know, in connection with that, Chancellor Malloy published a message to the community this afternoon, just a little bit before this session began, and I wanted to be clear about some. He has asked that we finalize plans by close of business tomorrow, March 18th, to transition our university and system work to remote or telecommuting arrangements to the maximum extent possible, beginning Thursday morning, March 19th, which means that we are already working to support this kind of safe community protective health measures that we're hearing are absolutely vital to flattening the curve with this disease. And so that will go into place. But you also notice that in those words, he's very clear with us all that this is about keeping business going in new modes and finding new ways to serve our students, to serve all of those who are a part of these universities. It takes me to another question. Will deadlines get pushed back with spring break being pushed back? Great question. I think an obvious deadline that we're all paying attention to is fall registration. And so that is absolutely on the radar. We're watching what these deadlines are and making decisions in real time that we hope will be reasonable for everybody. Again, watch the website for information about something such as that. Is study abroad for the fall canceled? We don't have a decision on that at this time. Obviously, what the Chancellor said is the case. We can't know where things will be by that time, but we will keep working for creative ways to make experiences for students as close to what they can get right now. In real time or in face-to-face kinds of experiences, we're going to be working at what this looks like in the longer term.
And on the study abroad, it's a little more complicated because it's not just what we're doing in the United States, it's what the new host country's policy will be, and whether they'll be inviting of students coming there. And again, I think more likely than not, that may be possible, but a lot of this has to do with whether we can maintain the medical service availability because we flattened that curve. And that's what it's all hands on deck to do in the United States right now. I have been handed a notice. We have a lot of questions that are coming in, and we will do our best to address those questions on our website or directly by the end of day tomorrow. So I know a lot of questions have backed up while we're trying to handle some of them. We'll do our best to get an answer to you either directly or on our website.
We've got a few questions that have to do with compensation for student workers, work study availability and dollars for work study, also graduate student stipends. Again, there are answers to these questions on our websites. In general, if you have specific questions, our best advice is to speak to your supervisors. It's our intention with federal work study and with graduate student stipends to keep those stipends going out for people who are able to work remotely. That will be very clear. But again, we're trying to be as flexible and as supportive of everyone as possible, and help people to be able to make their plans as we have information. So those questions we know are already answered on the website.
On the work study side, we're living by the guidelines, the new updated guidelines that we're getting from the federal government. That is a federal program, and they have liberalized those rules very extensively. You'll see that on the website.
We're getting some specific questions about particular labs. Will the finance lab be opened up for students during the semester? Again, different buildings on the University of Maine campus and in the University of Maine at Machias and across the system indeed are making decisions in many cases particular to their circumstances, but everybody working to stick with this goal of no more than 10 people in a place at a time, with social distancing, with good health practices, lots of hand sanitizer available. And so for specific places that you would like to visit or know about, best is going to be to check websites and to call faculty if you need to. But at this stage, things will be more and more limited as time goes on.
There's been some specific questions about living on campus for students that have that are currently living on campus. If any student hasn't moved their things out by, if you've already moved out, that's considered your checkout. So you don't have to come back to check out if you moved out all your things. The Residence Life staff will be going through all the residence halls on March 23rd. And if your belongings are still in the room, Residence Life will contact you directly to figure out a time to get all of your things out of the room. Room and board refunds will also be out by March 31st. If you have any questions about that refund, you should contact Student Life or Residence Life and Housing directly. Along with that, if students are moving out of the residence halls, if they're currently there and were not approved to stay, there will be some staff on hand to help students find other accommodations around the area. So we want to make sure our students are not homeless, that they're finding places to live. Student Life will be working with those students to figure out where they can stay.
All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody, all of our participants, all of our viewers, our folks who sent us questions, and everybody really in the University of Maine, University of Maine at Machias, and I'm sure across the system for rising to this occasion. It's remarkable the stories we are hearing of people's clever ideas, willingness to help, willingness to go the extra mile to support our students, our staff, our faculty, our communities. So thank you for having us have this opportunity, Chancellor.
Well, again, thank you. These are difficult times, and a lot of these questions don't have exact answers today, but I predict as time goes forward, we'll be able to give clearer and clearer answers to these questions. We're also relying on a lot of advice from the federal government and the state government, and we are in daily contact, actually hourly contact, with Maine CDC on their approach to keeping people safe, as well as the national federal CDC officials. We're also, I'll be on a call with the White House tomorrow getting an update from the White House perspective on this matter. So bear with us. We'll get you, I'm a big transparency guy. We're going to get you as much information as quickly as we can and resolve as many issues as we can just as quickly. Oh, we got
some more questions.
More questions. Okay. I'll give you a couple. All right. How will this affect students defending thesis who can't do data collection? I guess is the question. I don't know. Do we have that one?
So we issued some guidance yesterday at the University of Maine about research. It includes advice about data collection. Data collection becomes really complicated because oftentimes it involves human subjects, and those rules are very particular, and the 10 people in a room kind of situation will take precedence here. Our Vice President for Research, Cody Vararamian, is putting together additional guidance today. It will cover this question about data collection because that will become challenging, and we will be as flexible as we can be on that one. I'm going to give this one to the Chancellor.
Okay.
Julia, what do you have?
questions about commencement and the student symposium.
Right, so commencement, we've committed to getting back to everyone by April 15th with kind of next decisions, next plans on that. The student symposium to have been hosted by the University of Maine will not be held. It may either be postponed or there may be a virtual attempt to work at that. I don't know if you know. If you do, that would be good.
I can only speak for the students that I'm mentoring, that we're working on some virtual ideas, because we know that all of our students have such wonderful research that they've been working on. And so we hope that there are some creative solutions out there so that they can still share with you their hard work this past year.
That's right. Do you have any more questions?
Yes, I do have a question.
Has one too. Chancellor has one too.
When will students who requested housing after the 22nd find out? They will be finding out hopefully tomorrow, which is Wednesday, if they were approved to stay on campus or not.
Right.
And I want to say this because lots of people may be watching. Those people staying on campus will be exceptions, particularly in traditional style dorms, which are just not the places that you want to have a large group of people. We do have some apartment style residences that are largely occupied by graduate students. They'll hear what the decision is with respect to that. But again, this is about public safety and the spread of the virus. So our goal was to get at least 80% initially of students out of housing, particularly housing that put them and their community in danger. I think we'll exceed that by a substantial percentage. We are working with people. Very few people will, in fact, be staying on any of our campuses.
And they will be guided by absolute best practice and CDC guidance about health practices, social distancing, everything that we know is required in order to keep everybody safe. That's our intention.
I have one which is a tough one to answer. Can it be mandated that professors be more flexible with deadlines, et cetera? Well, we're urging everyone to be as flexible as possible. And I think this is an area where students may have to take it upon themselves and explain their circumstances to a professor. I'd like to believe that our professors will find a way to help students resolve these issues. Just as students are having a different experience, many of our professors will be having a different experience. For the first time in some cases, using distant learning as the delivery system. So I think students will have to be patient with professors. I hope professors will be patient with students and work things out so that we can move forward together. And I think that's the best answer I can give you. Raise the issue with the professor and do the best you can in that regard. Professors, and I know there's a bunch watching on faculty members watching this evening. Again, this is really about students and helping them through this really great trial that no one bargained for, and understanding and putting that in perspective.
So just a reminder, with the notice from the Chancellor today, we will begin our classes again on March 25th. Our faculty are working to be ready for that date. We know that students are watching these announcements and will be attending to this. With so many of our faculty looking to do asynchronous learning, it may be possible that things will be posted and students can go ahead right away as they wish. But everybody should watch and be ready for coming back after spring break virtually on March 25th. I want to emphasize the website one more time, which I should have memorized.
It's maine.edu/health-advisory. That's the website, and you can go to that. Actually, I just want to say one thing. We probably, in future shows, should update the public about where Vincent's sister will be going to school. We want her to come to Maine, the University of Maine, and we're going to put as much pressure on her to do that as humanly possible. It's a great place and a wonderful university and a great opportunity to get an affordable education in the great state of Maine.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.